today for the program on Wellness for Peace, I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation and how it helps us to handle the day-to-day challenges. And I don't know about where the different people are in this conference, in this workshop, but it seems to me that we are fairly well distributed in different parts of the world. And for a year and a half, there has been something new for everyone to have to handle as day-to-day challenges, and that is the global pandemic that we call COVID-19. It's called COVID-19 because it emerged in 2019, and here we are halfway through 2021. So it has changed life for a large number of people, and it has become something that we think will go away anytime very quickly, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be going away all that quickly. And now everyone has to be vaccinated. And around the question of vaccination, there are many, many conflicting ideas which are coming through on social media and on regular media. And so consequently, we have to be kind of different for ourselves. We have to be different in the sense that we have to handle working at home where previously we didn't have to. And for many people, this is not really a temporary thing. It's becoming more and more of a permanent thing, which means you have to change your life for the long term. That means you have to have good internet, and you have to have a place. You have to have a home office. Now, not everybody has a home office. So many people are working at the kitchen table, especially women, and there are children around and maybe animals around. So this is a kind of new challenge, the challenge of rearranging the home so that it's not just home, but it's partly home and partly work. And then that means also that instead of having a routine where you have your home life and then you go somewhere else to work, you have a commute, then you come back. So you're able to separate your work and your home life. But now these two, for many, many people, have become merged. Some people who were already used to a home office, it's no different for them. But for a large number of people, it is an extra challenge, an extra stress, an extra like a burden that you have to deal with, which you think you shouldn't have had to deal with, but you have to, so it's imposed. Then together with that, for many families, the children are having to work at home and study at home online. And so this has also created a big challenge for the parents. Then shopping has changed. So many people are limited by certain shops being open, but many, many shops being shut. And so therefore, shopping has become an online experience. And so the way that we get things is now different from how it used to be. And going shopping involved going out, maybe having a coffee somewhere, and it was an event. But now everyone is like confined to the home. And this creates a lot of stress in relationship. And people are able to go out for walks 1 hour a day. In some countries, they're limited to 3 kilometers, not more than 3 kilometers from your home. So this overall stress that has been added to by the circumstances of the global pandemic has had an effect on everyone's mental, psychological, emotional, and social health. And not everybody is really aware about this. Not everybody's aware about how to manage this. And so the amount of stress is getting increased. And so therefore I am taking up this in our workshop today. And I'm hoping that those of you who are with me in this workshop have pencil and paper, a notebook, something that you can write something down on. And I would like you to just take a moment to write down what additional stresses you are experiencing, especially around the restrictions that are in place in most parts of the world for around the COVID-19 global pandemic. And also write down how it makes you feel. Because meditation is really a way to help you to manage your feelings. And feelings become harder to manage when there is extra stress. One of the things you may feel, you might call it just general stress, but there might be a bit of anxiety connected with that. And when you feel anxiety and there is stress, then it's very easy to get irritable. So irritability is an emotion, it's something that you feel, and it's a sign that you are actually spiritually under pressure. So what meditation is for is to help you to get stronger, to have greater inner power. When you want to just use meditation as a technique or a method to just handle a feeling of the surging of irritability coming up, and what's going to happen if you don't do something about it is you will use words which are a bit hurtful. There'll be an energy behind your words which indicates that you're a little bit angry, and so therefore the person who is hearing you or to whom your words are directed will feel, and that feeling of irritation that you send their way will be difficult for them to manage. And so you have to manage your feeling, and then they, who are the brunt of your irritable expression, also has to manage their feelings. So there's a danger in that situation of a misunderstanding, a conflict, tension in the relationship, which is not something you want, because it's so easy for that tension to intensify. So meditation works like this, okay? There you are, you feel this feeling arising inside you. So what you do with meditation is you focus your mind on that feeling. Focus your mind on that feeling, and you tell that feeling, it's okay, calm down. And you have to do something like expand your heart so that you're able to accommodate that feeling. So in your mind, you think about making yourself large enough to handle that inflow of irritation. And then when you are having that bigger space, that energy of that irritation tends to dissipate and fade away, and it will just calm itself because you have created that space. Now in India, there is a really famous scripture which is called the Bhagavad Gita, and it talks about meditation, many different types of meditation. And it talks specially about this technique of making yourself large to be able to accommodate. And the way it describes it is, imagine yourself as the ocean. So I'm sure that you have spent time near the ocean. If not, you see video of it or film of it. And the ocean is so vast and beautiful. And if you have been on flights over the ocean, you really are flying for hours and hours over this great blue expanse. And how much water is there in the ocean? It's huge. But yet, so much garbage is dumped into the ocean. So many rivers flow into the ocean. But the ocean remains still and steady. So this is an analogy. And this analogy is a really good technique for handling the pressures and stresses that you get. So just imagine for a moment with me, imagine that you have inside your heart the ocean. So in your mind's eye, see a picture of the huge ocean, and it's your heart, it's your feelings. And along comes someone who says something which is not very kind, and it is like a stone dropping into the ocean. But the ocean just lets that stone fall in and go down to the bottom and sit there, and it's actually all right. Doesn't make any difference to anything. The ocean is really not bothered. Okay, a stone came, fell through the waters, and it sits on the ground. And the ocean will say, so what? So this is a very, very useful little saying. Small word, 2 words, just, okay, so a stone was thrown. It went all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, and it sits there doing nothing in particular. So what? Doesn't really make any difference to anything. This is a beautiful technique for handling the words that may be unkind that come out of the mouth of an irritated person. But if you become irritated and some stones come out of your mouth and land in someone's ears, they may not be practicing to be the ocean. So what would they do is they would react. So you may or may not be able to control this, but whatever happens, think of a situation where you made a mistake, but it was too late to do anything about it because it just happened. And then there was a reaction. Well, you have to manage the reaction. And the reaction is like an explosion. You threw some bomb and it exploded, and it exploded back to you. So what will you do with all that disturbance, all that chaos? Well, I think again, your ocean is going to be quite helpful there. You have to be able to endure that reaction and not escalate the situation, because otherwise situations tend to escalate. So meditation is very helpful when a situation that maybe you started and it goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and it escalates. So what will you do to stop the escalation? So again, let yourself imagine yourself as the sky. Because the sky is vast. And whenever there are explosions, they tend to fill the sky for a while. Like if there's a volcano that erupts, it will throw ash into the sky several kilometers high. It will throw rocks all over the place and send the people scurrying for safety. Maybe a flow of hot lava will start flowing. And in recent times, there have been plenty of volcanoes erupting. So there you are in front of an erupting volcano, but the sky can manage it because the sky is vast. The sky knows no limits. And so put yourself into that mentality that I am the sky. So this explosion, the sky doesn't react to an explosion. It just allows the explosion to dissipate and to flow where it has to flow. And this is the quality of patience. Now, these techniques that I'm mentioning about, they require personal strength, personal inner power. Let's go back to the example of you got irritated and you said something unkind and someone reacted. So what happened there? You got irritated. You got irritated because something irritated you. And the natural thing is to think that the irritating thing is to blame. And it should not be irritating me. And the only reason I'm getting irritated is because there is something that's irritating me. Well, there's a beautiful example about what an oyster does with an irritation. You know, the oyster is living in the sea and there's a lot of sand, and sometimes a grain of sand goes into the oyster. And the oyster is actually very sensitive. And so that piece of grit, which is very hard edges on it, it's very irritating for the oyster. So what does the oyster do? The oyster covers that piece of gritty sand, that very terrible, irritating item, which is stuck inside its body. It starts to cover that sand with mother of pearl. and gradually it becomes a larger and larger, beautiful and ever more valuable pearl, which then becomes ultimately a very important piece of jewelry that someone wears. A woman may wear beautiful pearls in her ears, around her neck, around her wrist, and it will make her beautiful. So this is the technique of meditation that we call the power of transformation. You take something irritating and you use your power of choice to say, whatever this is, I am going to take responsibility for how I handle it. I am going to accept this irritating thing and make it so that it is comfortable. And I will turn it into something advantageous, something valuable, something beautiful. And especially, I will not blame that thing that it's irritating me and it shouldn't irritate me. I will take a different angle of approach. Say, okay, here is this thing. And I am irritated not because of it. I am irritated because of myself. I am irritated because my actual self is inadequately empowered. This is really the problem. The problem is not the irritating thing came along to irritate me. For that, I would say it is destiny. It is destined for that thing to come. Sometimes you ask the question, why is it destined to come and irritate me? That's not fair. Why? And again, we come back to the same old thought that it should not be there. But whether it should or should not is not really the question. Meditation says it is there. You can even say to yourself, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And that's the truth. So whether it should or shouldn't come is not really the point. It is there. So I have to deal with it. So I have difficulty dealing with it. Why? Because I'm not enough strong. So spiritual capacity or spiritual strength is increased by meditation. And meditation means to sit with yourself and to focus on yourself as a being of light, a spiritual being of light, and connect yourself with the source, the supreme being, because that is your source of power. It's like your cell phone. I don't think there's anyone who is in this workshop who doesn't have a cell phone. And the important thing about your cell phone is that it has to be charged up. And when your cell phone is low on power, your mind is full of one thought, and that is, where is my charger and where can I plug it in? Because if it goes down because of lack of power, then you are in a bit of a problem. So the soul itself is like that. When you are fully charged, everything is fine, and all of the capabilities and capacities, like the little apps in the soul, they're all working fine when there's a charge. But if the charge is down, or if the internet is down or fluctuating or whatever, any kind of problem of that nature, and then you're in trouble. Same thing with the soul. You need to give attention to make sure that in advance of any problem, you are well charged. So being well charged means that you give yourself time for the care of your soul. So meditation happens when you make time for it. You make space for it. You sit down and you say, okay, self, let me sit with myself and be the peaceful being that I am. And let me focus my mind on the source, the force, the higher power, the supreme soul, and pull energy into myself. When the soul is empowered like this, an irritation can come along and it will not bother you. And therefore you don't react. When the soul is low on power, the irritation comes. Same irritation comes, it bothers you. Why? It's not anything to do with the source of the irritation. It's all to do with, am I in my power, or did I let my charge go down? Did I let myself get spiritually weak? But just as every day you take care of your body, you give water and food and juice and rest and exercise and all of these things, then your body is in good shape and it will last you well and for a good amount of time. Same way, your soul needs to be nurtured by meditation. So let's just take a moment, a little meditation break. You can do a meditation break in the middle of anything. And meditation is not anything physical, really. It's about thinking. So just for a moment, think about yourself as a beautiful being of light. And let your thoughts slow down. Just imagine yourself as a beautiful star of light, radiant, shining, amazing. Give yourself time to be. And then open yourself to that higher light, that higher being, the Supreme Soul, who is there beyond. And just turn your mind, your light, your being, to that light. Just feel the energy flowing in. Feel yourself being free from external issues. Go deep into your ocean. Go high into your sky. Either way, it takes you to that connection. Feel that light coming into you. You're connected. You're getting charged. Even in a matter of a few seconds, just a minute, you get charged. And then you return back to your circumstances, situation, where you're ready to manage anything that comes along to challenge you. So this is meditation, high-speed meditation. But of course, it's also good to meditate for longer periods of time so that you have a good full charge. Like sometimes you will need to put your cell phone on charge for a matter of hours. And so sometimes you would like to sit with your soul, maybe play some beautiful, calm music, and be in a place where there won't be any disturbances in particular. And you're able to just sit and soak in that energy and that light, which also takes the form of feelings of peace, feelings of love, and you feel fresh, ready to handle anything. So let's come back to another of those daily challenges that happens to all of us. And that is that around us, there is a feeling of increased insecurity. The crime levels are going up. The cost of living is going up. The amount of disturbance in the external world is increasing. People's jobs are not as secure as they might have been. I think every one of us has someone they know or a relative who has succumbed to the COVID-19, and you were not allowed to visit them in the hospital. You were not allowed to attend their funeral. So these things start to create a feeling of insecurity, which is, I think, greater than people have had for a while. In some parts of the world, political stability is not there, and there is insecurity about that. In some parts of the world, there is organized crime, and there's insecurity about that. There are wars, more and more wars happening. And so this feeling of insecurity is like a shadow that's growing over people, and it creates fear. And so I want to take up how meditation helps us with the feelings of fear that is maybe fear of the unknown. When you have this kind of overall feeling of insecurity, it creates a general atmosphere of fear that is just pretty much permanent. And so you have to get used to feeling insecure and fearful. And some people find it quite difficult to get used to such a thing. And the actual amount of fear can become disproportionate to the unknown, unclear, nebulous feeling of fear that's there. And a lot of the conspiracy theories and fake news that comes around on the social media and on the internet here and there. So how are you going to manage this kind of fear? So meditation also helps us to become aware of the dimension of destiny. Destiny, what is that? Destiny is something like this, that whatever is going to happen will happen anyway. And it's not that by getting afraid of it is going to change anything. Being afraid is a very powerful feeling, and sometimes we get taken over by the feeling of being afraid, and then we react to that feeling and we do actions or we say things which further actually disempower us. So what meditation says is, by the way, you are a soul and you cannot be destroyed. You cannot be, you cannot die. Anything that happens to you is connected with your karma. And if there is something that happens to you that is not connected with your karma, because that's also possible, if it is connected with your karma, then you have to deal with it when it comes. If you're afraid of it for weeks and weeks and months, and then it comes, you still have to deal with it. So better to make yourself strong so that when anything comes, you're in a very good position to deal with it, and you shift your fear into courage. Because fear is like a given. It's not that it's a weakness. Fear is just there. But there are two possible responses that you can have. Now, when the soul is in its power, when you are taking care of yourself by meditating regularly, you're building up that strength, and that strength takes the form of courage. So whenever there is a fearful atmosphere or an overall feeling of insecurity, the good response is take a step of courage. And there's a very beautiful saying, which I think is important to be aware about. When you take one little step of courage, what happens? It's a karma. The karma of taking a step of courage is a very positive karma. And so what happens as a direct result of taking one little step of courage is you receive 1,000 steps of help. But you have to take the first step of courage. That's the deal. Now, when the soul is not strong, then taking a step of courage, that's too much. Can't do it. Too much fear. So then what happens when the soul is disempowered is instead of a step of courage, you take a step of cowardice. You're afraid, and then you do something cowardly. Sometimes you lie, sometimes you run away instead of facing, sometimes you freeze. Different types of cowardly action in the face of fear, only because you don't have quite enough inner power. Not because you're bad, it's just that you didn't accumulate quite enough strength that you needed to have. So whenever you are feeling this fear rising within you, remember, step of courage, and then think, okay, in this situation, what would be a good step of courage for me to take now? Sometimes it's simply a matter of saying no. Some people are just afraid to say no. You take a step of courage and you say, no, sorry, I won't go there. I won't do that. I need to take care of myself. No. Some people are afraid to say, I have a right. I want to assert my right. And let me say, I have a right to this. Let me go for it. It could be a career choice. It could be education. It could be a situation in the family. It's just very, very important to be aware of your rights. And you might be in a circumstance where somebody else doesn't feel like encouraging you or actively discourages you from claiming your rights. But if you are aware of your rights, then it takes a step of courage to assert your rights, which is, all this is very positive karma. And so there's a positive result. And when you take that step of courage to assert your rights, very often you will get what you have a right to. But if you're afraid and you don't do anything, that would be cowardice. And then you won't get what you have a right to, only because you didn't assert that. So think about it and take your pen and pencil and notebook and just write down for a moment what it is that's a really, really important to you, that you feel is your right, but that you're afraid to claim it. Because I think many of us have that feeling, I have a right to this thing, but there's so many obstacles, so I can't have it. And that will put you into stress also. But write down for yourself, now, I have a right to be me. I have a right to be happy. I have a right to get my needs met. And even if it is a problem for somebody else, maybe because they're selfish or whatever, but that's not my problem. I have a right. And even if there may be a reaction, but whatever is your right, it is okay to assert it, because that keeps the balance. And society works well when it's all in balance. And we're talking about wellness for peace. If we have balance, if we assert our rights, if we handle our fears with steps of courage, it will actually contribute very well to peace. So let's take another moment before we finish and look at your questions, to just take another step inside. Be the being of light. Sometimes go deep into your ocean of inner space, inner peace. And just feel that warmth and spiritual energy filling you. This is a very important right, the right to be spiritually in your power. Practice this. Claim your right and be the beautiful being that you are. Enjoy the stillness. Let your thoughts settle down. Be at ease. And then let yourself come back into the world of sights and sounds and interaction with each other. Thank you very much.